Welcome to another episode of People Pod. Imagine for a second trying to plan the ultimate victory lap to celebrate a 40-year, just totally record-shattering career.
Right. The stakes are already incredibly high.
Exactly. You have assembled the team, you've built the stage, and the world is waiting. But then, literally weeks before the curtain is supposed to rise, you are suddenly rushed to the ICU.
Yeah, fighting a severe bacterial infection.
Right, and it forces the entire tour to just come to a grinding halt. So how do you bounce back from that kind of near tragedy, pausing your entire life, to eventually perform for the largest standalone concert crowd in human history?
I mean, it really sounds like the climax of a Hollywood biopic, doesn't it? But it is an entirely real sequence of events. To navigate that kind of pivot requires a level of grit and, honestly, logistical brilliance that is just incredibly rare.
It really is. Today's deep dive into the source material is about Madonna's The Celebration Tour, which spanned from late 2023 into 2024. And, this wasn't just a string of concerts, it was her very first retrospective tour.
Which is a huge milestone for someone with her catalog.
Totally. And for you listening, whether you are a diehard fan or just loosely aware of pop culture, this story really matters. It is a masterclass in resilience, cultural legacy, and the sheer mechanics of global superstardom. Okay, let's unpack this. How did this massive undertaking even begin?
Well, the foundation was actually laid through this very calculated whisper campaign back in late 2022. She had just released a compilation album called Finally Enough Love, 50 number ones.
Right, the remix album.
Yeah, and the album itself was a massive milestone because it celebrated her 50 number one hits on the U.S. Billboard Dance Club Songs chart, which, by the way, is an unprecedented metric for any artist.
50 number ones is just insane.
It really is. So to promote it, she dropped this seemingly casual YouTube video answering 50 burning questions from fans, and at the very end of it, she cheekily asks the camera, do you want me to go on tour?
I remember that. You cannot just casually drop a line like that when you have a catalog of that size. I mean, the internet essentially forces your hand at that point.
Oh, absolutely, which was clearly the strategy all along. Because by early 2023, she made it official with a highly viral announcement video. It was inspired by her legendary 1991 Truth or Dare documentary.
Oh, the one with the round table of celebrities?
Exactly. She gathered people like Diplo, Lil Wayne, Jack Black, and Bob the Drag Queen. And it ends with comedian Amy Schumer literally daring Madonna to go on tour and perform her 4 decades of mega hits.
And didn't the sources say something funny about that shoot?
Yeah, Bob the Drag Queen actually revealed later that no one in the video even knew what they were there to film until the cameras literally started rolling.
That is so classic. But, I don't get it, though. Her co-manager famously called the planning process an embarrassment of riches. Why is having too many hits a problem? I mean, why not just play a 20-minute medley of all 50 hits, put them in a mega mix, and just call it a day?
Well, because a simple medley fundamentally cheapens the narrative arc, especially for an artist who has defined entire eras of pop culture.
Right, that makes sense.
You have to ask, how do you fit 40 years of distinct personas, iconic music videos, and cultural shifts into a single, cohesive, 2-hour narrative? If you just rush through a chorus of each song, you lose all the theatricality that made those songs hits in the first place.
It's sort of like trying to compress an entire physical encyclopedia set into a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
You want to include everything, but you simply cannot without losing the depth. I was reading in the sources that her team actually debated a radically different approach, doing a different tour entirely for each individual decade.
They did consider that, yeah, which just speaks to the sheer volume of material they were wrestling with. But ultimately, they decided to weave it all into one highly evolved storyline. They really wanted her specific voice and her historical narrative to lead the way, guiding the audience chronologically and emotionally through her life.
And to tell that story, they made a really surprising musical choice. For a legacy artist of this magnitude, you almost always expect, a massive live band on stage. The roaring guitars, the huge brass section. But for the Celebration Tour, Madonna did not have an onstage live band.
No, she didn't.
Wait, doesn't that just feel like lip-syncing to a CD? I mean, if I'm paying arena ticket prices, I want to see musicians sweating it out.
What's fascinating here is how her musical director, Stuart Price, engineered around that exact concern. They didn't just press play on a Spotify track.
Oh, thank goodness.
Right. They actually took the original multi-track studio stems from the 1980s and 90s. So they isolated her original vocal takes, and they isolated those highly specific vintage synthesizer sounds that modern live bands actually really struggle to perfectly replicate.
Oh, wow. So it's the actual original file.
Exactly. Then They remixed and remastered those original stems for modern arena-scale spatial audio systems. Price explained that a greatest hit didn't just have to be a song. It could be a specific wardrobe, a music video, or a cultural statement.
So, by stripping away the live instrumentation, you are actually preserving the exact auditory memory the audience has of the song. That is so smart.
It is. And furthermore, this choice fundamentally altered the visual landscape of the show. If you don't have a drum kit, a brass section, and backup musicians taking up all that physical space and kinetic energy on stage, you have a massive spatial void.
Right, it's just an empty stage.
Exactly. So the creative team was forced to fill that void entirely with visual storytelling, choreography, and really intricate stage mechanics.
But right as they were architecting this massive, intricate, highly technical plan, disaster struck.
Yeah.
In June 2023, the news breaks globally. Madonna is rushed to the hospital and admitted to the ICU for several days with a serious bacterial infection.
That's terrifying.
And the North American leg of the tour, which was supposed to kick off in July in Vancouver, just had to be completely postponed.
Her manager, Guy Ossery, had to issue this emergency statement pausing all commitments. Just consider the logistical and physical toll of the timing.
Right, they were so close to the start.
Yeah, she had already been in intense, grueling rehearsals at the Nassau Coliseum for months. The machine was moving at full speed, and then it instantly flatlined.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because they had to figure out how to translate this deeply personal, terrifying brush with mortality into the physical stage production they were already building.
Absolutely. The near-death experience altered the core DNA of the tour. As her manager pointed out, the show was always intended to be a celebration of her life and career. But surviving that ICU stint brought a totally different emotional weight to the production.
It wasn't just a retrospective anymore.
No, it transformed from a nostalgic look backward into an active, literal celebration of her survival. The emotional stakes of the performance skyrocketed for Madonna herself, for her massive traveling crew of over 200 people, and certainly for the fans who realized how close they came to losing her.
Because the show was now an active reflection on her survival, the physical stage design actually had to map out that life journey. According to the sources, they worked with a British architecture and stage design company called Stufish.
Yes, and the stage they came up with was incredible.
It was conceived as this abstract, geometric map of New York City in the early 1980s. The intersecting runways were inspired by the grid of Manhattan, like Uptown, Downtown, and Midtown.
And that grid layout wasn't just aesthetic, it was deeply symbolic. She famously arrived in New York City with just $35 in her pocket to launch her career.
That classic origin story.
Exactly. The stage grounded the entire massive arena show in those humble, gritty beginnings.
The engineering details in the center of that grid are what really caught my attention, though. They built this kinetic, revolving, three-layered circular platform.
Designing a kinetic stage that large is an absolute engineering marvel. I mean, it has to support the weight of multiple dancers while seamlessly rotating and elevating.
Which is so dangerous if not done right.
Totally. And the design referenced two distinct things. First, the shape of a rotating clock, representing the passage of time. And second, the iconic multi-tiered wedding cake from her legendary performance of Like a Virgin at the 1984 MTV Video Music Awards.
The mechanics of how she moved around this massive grid are incredible. My absolute favorite part of the staging is what the crew called the time machine.
Oh, that was visually stunning.
It was this floating, illuminated portal frame. It literally lifted Madonna 30 feet into the air, moving her at 15 feet per second, flying her entirely over the heads of the arena audience just to travel between the different stages.
And moving a human being over a crowd at 15 feet per second requires industrial-grade automation disguised as art.
Seriously.
It provided a highly immersive experience for the fans in the back rows, too. And the visual technology matched that mechanical ambition. For the song Bedtime Story, the front of the stage physically rose 16 feet in the air to become a giant projection cube.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and a Brazilian video game developer was actually brought in to create these dreamlike visuals, mapping Madonna's physical movements on stage to a massive digital avatar in real time.
That is wild. But, you cannot tell the story of Madonna's life without talking about the clothes. The wardrobe for this tour wasn't just a collection of costumes. It was essentially a traveling museum of historical artifacts.
It really was.
The designers, Eob Johannes and Rita Melson, collaborated with massive fashion houses like Donatella Versace, Gurumji Vasalia, and Jean-Paul Gaultier.
because fashion has always been the primary vehicle for her storytelling. They drew directly from her stylistic past, but, recreating iconic looks for a modern tour presents a massive technical challenge.
I picture it like a superhero revisiting their vault of old suits. You are walking down the hall, seeing the old armor behind glass. But unlike a superhero suit that just sits on a mannequin, these archival pieces had to be rebuilt to withstand the sweat, the quick changes, and the intense movement of a 2-hour athletic arena show.
Right, they can't just be museum pieces on stage. Madonna actually opened up her personal temperature-controlled archives to the design team. In one sequence towards the end of the show, her backup dancers wore exact recreations of 17 of her most iconic past looks.
17 of them.
Yeah. The designers meticulously sourced fabrics and embroideries that perfectly matched the originals from the 1980s and 90s, but they integrated modern high-tensile materials so the dancers could actually perform the intense choreography in them.
That's brilliant. So you had the recreation of the Jean-Paul Gaultier black conical mini dress covered in crystals for Vogue, which echoed the legendary 1990 Blonde Ambition tour.
An absolute classic.
And you had a futuristic mirrored silver catsuit by Versace for the finale that made her look like she was stepping right out of the metaverse. But for all the futuristic spectacle and the metaverse catsuits, I was struck by how the most powerful moment of the show stripped all of that away to look at the past, specifically the live-to-tell performance.
That was a defining moment of the tour. During the performance of her 1986 ballad Live to Tell, she rode that floating time machine portal over the crowd.
The one moving over the audience.
Yes. And as she flew, massive drop-down screens and banners slowly descended from the arena ceiling, displaying over 300 photos of people who died during the AIDS epidemic.
That is a staggering visual to witness in a pop concert.
It really is. It featured images of her close friends, like the artist Keith Haring, and peers like Freddie Mercury. To execute this, she worked directly with the creator of the Instagram account, the AIDS Memorial.
Oh, I've seen that account.
Yeah, they undertook a massive data and archiving project to gather the names and faces of more than 100,000 victims, displaying different faces in different cities. Elton John publicly applauded her for the tribute, too.
Wow, even Elton John weighed in.
Yeah, this transcended a typical concert moment. It was a profound act of historical preservation. It served as a massive, highly visible tribute to the LGBTQ+ community she came up alongside in those early New York days.
It is incredibly moving to see a pop star leverage their massive platform for that kind of somber reflection. But, a retrospective of someone known globally as a supreme provocateur wouldn't be authentic without a little friction.
Definitely not.
The messiness of megastardom is part of the story, and controversies definitely shadowed this tour.
Navigating a tour of this scale always invites logistical and cultural friction, and we see that clearly in the legal challenges she faced in the United States.
Right. The most prominent issue in the U.S. was the tardiness lawsuits. We are talking about literal class action lawsuits filed by attendees in New York and Washington, D.C., because Madonna started her shows up to 2 hours late, 2 hours of waiting in an arena.
Yeah, the plaintiffs took serious legal action. They accused Madonna, Live Nation, and the hosting venues of deceptive trade practices and false advertising.
2 hours is a long time.
It is. One specific lawsuit originating in D.C. accused her of showing total disrespect for her fans by making them wait in a hot, uncomfortable, crowded arena environment.
I have to push back a little here and ask you, does a pop star's monumental legacy give them a free pass to completely disrespect fans' time? I mean, if an everyday person shows up 2 hours late to their job, they get fired. Or is waiting for the queen just part of the expected diva theatrical experience?
Well, it is a debate that deeply divides audiences and legal experts alike. From an analysis of the legal defense strategy in the sources, Live Nation initially pointed to a technical sound issue for the severe delay in New York.
Okay, technical issues happen.
Right. However, Madonna's legal team took a much bolder, more philosophical stance in their filings. They argued that anyone who is a true fan of Madonna knows she rarely, if ever, starts her concerts at the time printed on the ticket.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. They meticulously pointed out that one of the lead plaintiffs, who claimed to be a longtime fan, should have been well aware of her decades-long history of late starts.
Ah, the classic, you knew what you were signing up for when you bought the ticket defense.
Exactly. And legally speaking, that argument proved effective at diminishing the plaintiff's momentum. The lawsuits struggled to prove substantial damages and were eventually dropped or voluntarily dismissed by the fans.
Fascinating.
But the friction wasn't just logistical. The tour faced a very different, far more intense kind of backlash when it reached South America.
Right, it's worth noting the tour wasn't universally praised as a triumphant return. In Brazil, it became a massive flashpoint for political tension.
Yes. While the show in Rio was a monumental success in terms of attendance, it drew severe condemnation from far-right politicians aligned with Bolsonarism.
Which is very politically charged right now.
Very. These political figures publicly labeled the stage show as satanic and pornographic. Certain media personalities even went so far as to baselessly blame the singer for devastating climate disasters and floods that happened to be occurring in southern Brazil during the same week as the concert.
It is wild to think that at 65 years old, simply performing a retrospective of her music still generates that level of intense cultural and political turbulence. She clearly hasn't lost her ability to provoke the establishment. But despite the class action lawsuits and the intense political noise, this tour barreled toward an unprecedented, record-shattering finale.
Everything culminated in May 2024, setting a benchmark that the live music industry is still trying to fully comprehend.
Let me set the scene for you listening. Imagine Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro. It is a completely free concert. You look out and there are 1.6 million people standing on the sands, stretching down the coastline as far as the eye can see. 1.6 million people gathered in one place.
To properly contextualize the scale of that crowd, it became the largest audience of Madonna's entire 40-year career.
Just massive.
Furthermore, it set world records as the largest audience ever recorded for a standalone concert by any artist in history, and the largest all-time crowd for a female artist.
So, what does this all mean? Obviously, a crowd of 1.6 million people on a world-famous beach is a phenomenal photo op for her legacy, but what is the real-world impact of putting that many people in a city for a single night?
Well, it proves that the Madonna effect isn't merely a cultural phenomenon. It is a staggering macroeconomic engine.
How so?
The city of Rio de Janeiro invested approximately 10 million Brazilian reals into the event through public sponsorships. According to a comprehensive survey conducted by the city's prefecture, the concert yielded an estimated return of 293.4 million reals directly into the local economy.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that is nearly a 30-fold return on their initial investment.
30 times the investment. But how exactly does a municipality make almost 300 million reals off a concert where the tickets are entirely free? I mean, nobody paid to get in.
It all comes down to the mechanics of urban economic multipliers. When 1.6 million people descend on a single neighborhood, the infrastructure required to support them generates massive revenue. Searches for accommodations on platforms like Airbnb spiked by 1,000%.
1,000%.
Yes, and bus ticket searches to travel into the city went up 900%. The city collects transit fees, hotel taxes, and massive surges in sales tax from local food and beverage vendors. Even boat rentals people paying local captains just to watch the concert from the water surged by 300%.
People were renting boats just to sit off the beach.
Exactly. The Brazilian Tourist Board documented a nearly four-fold increase in international tourist arrivals at the local airports. The city recoups its 10 million real investment almost instantly through consumption taxes. She didn't just play a show, she single-handedly catalyzed a localized economic boom.
It really brings the whole narrative full circle in such a dramatic way. I mean, this tour started with a woman lying in an intensive care unit, pausing her entire life, with a future that was completely uncertain. And it ended with her standing on Copacabana Beach in front of 1.6 million people, generating hundreds of millions for a global city's economy.
It proves exactly why she remains the architectural blueprint for every modern female pop star touring today. She took 4 decades of constant reinvention, survived a major health scare that would have retired most artists, and wove all of it into a technological and emotional spectacle that literally rewrote the record books.
And left an undeniable mark on the touring industry as a whole, showing what is actually possible at the tail end of a career.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Rio concert was so wildly lucrative and culturally dominant that the mayor of Rio de Janeiro publicly expressed his desire to institutionalize the experience.
Really? Like making it a regular thing?
Exactly. The city is now officially launching a yearly mega concert project on the beach called Todo Mundo no Rio, and they're starting the initiative with Lady Gaga in 2025.
Wow.
It leaves you to wonder, in the process of simply celebrating her own legacy, did Madonna just invent an entirely new city-sponsored global touring model for legacy artists?
Now that is something to chew on. From fighting a bacterial infection in the ICU to inventing a whole new way global cities and superstars interact to generate wealth. Thanks for listening to Pillow Pod. Keep tuning in for more stories worth knowing.